A big thanks to Negative Lab for sponsoring today's video. Check out Negative Lab at the link below and use the code DAVE to save 10% on your first order. I've mentioned now several times in prior videos that I'm working on a project, and that project I'm doing is here in the Northern Plains. I am in a very small town in the middle of nowhere. This town is really quiet, kind of freaking me out a little bit. There's like nobody out doing anything. It's also like 100 degrees. It's brutally hot right now. And while I'm not gonna go into like every detail about the project right now, I do want to tell you how I approach shooting film and digital in unison, because I shoot both all of the time. And this project specifically is mostly a film project, but I'm getting digital photos as a backup. While I'm here in this little town, I'm gonna be taking photos on the Leica M11 as my digital camera, and on this camera is the 35 Summilux, and I'll explain why in just a second. And I'm also shooting on the Leica M6 with the 50 Summilux. All right, so let's walk and talk. I'll put these back in here. For most of this project, I'm using a 50 millimeter, and that's true on the M6, but it's also mostly true on the Hasselblad 500 CM with the 80 and with the Rolleiflex 2.8 with the 80 as well. Both of these cameras have an 80 millimeter on a 6x6, which is a 40. So it's closer to 35 than 50, but 50 is kind of what I'm looking for on most of these compositions. The reason for that is because I want the experience that viewers will have on this project to have as close as a human eye experience is gonna be. Now, we definitely see nice and wide, but our depth is around 50. So when you look through a 50 millimeter lens, which this doesn't show me through the lens, I don't know why I did that. But when you look through a 50 millimeter lens, you kind of see the world as your eye sees it. And that's why I have a 50 here. I don't like this spot that I'm in, so I gotta find a better spot. It's kind of hard to find a spot right here that can get all this on 50. It's a challenge. Let's go this way. Let's get in this person's yard. Hopefully they won't mind. Ah, but then there's signs to shoot through. Don't wanna do that. We'll just try right beside the sign. And then it really just becomes a question of, if 50 is what I'm looking for, then why am I doing a 35 on the M11? Now, a Summilux lens has a certain look and character to it. So I think it's important, if you're shooting film and digital, to match the character of the lenses as close as possible if you want unison in your photos. 35 is really the right lens for the spot here. I'm shooting 35 though on the M11 because I have a ton of megapixels, and having all those megapixels gives me the ability to punch into what would be about 40, like the Rolleiflex or the Hasselblad, or punch into 50, which would be like the M6 with the 50 Summilux on it. And specifically with the 50 Summilux, I can really recreate a 50 digitally. It's not gonna be exactly the same in terms of like the depth and compression we're gonna get, but it's mostly going to be the same. Approaching photography like this, when you wanna shoot digital and film, lets you create unison in a gallery that you might present or a project you might be working on. For me, unison is incredibly important. Why did I put you guys right in front of me? Here, let's turn you around real quick. For me, unison's incredibly important. How are we doing here? We doing okay? Yeah, we're good. First time really using this tracking feature and a microphone. Now you also may notice that I'm not putting the photo on the screen as I take the photo to actually show you what I'm talking about. And that's because this video is going to be on YouTube before this film gets developed. I like this composition right here. You'll notice that I'm taking these photos back to back, so the lighting is most similar. I'm composing in the rangefinder basically the same, except of course the digital one's gonna be a little wider. Another thing that's really beneficial and helpful when you're shooting digital a little wider than your film camera is it lets you go back and tweak your composition a little bit. Let's say I'm off center just a touch on the film. I don't want to crop it in and it's not usable. Well, then my digital backup lets me recenter it while still keeping a little bit of that 50mm look because I can crop in from a wider scene. And these are really important things when you're working on like a gallery and you're combining film and digital. Some really weird stuff in this town. Really cool stuff in this town too. Like one quick and easy example is I'm doing a lot of like really spaced out evenly vertical lines on this project. And here I've got a mailbox, a hotel sign, and I've got the building edge. When I take this image, which I'm gonna do now, there's going to be a little discrepancy on Leica because how I see through the rangefinder and what's through the lens is going to be a little different. And I mean, it's like minimal, but just ever so slightly can be different. Whereas on the 35, I can use the live view, punch it in a little bit, and really fine tune that thing so it's correct. And there really is no guessing if the spacing is good or not. You can't get more diverse than using film and live view. I never use live view. This bank, 1910, so crazy. When I'm shooting film and digital, I don't overly worry about the settings being completely identical because there's a film in this camera and there's a sensor in that one. I try to keep the sensor at the lowest ISO possible so it's super clean, and the film is whatever I put in here. But I try to keep the aperture as close to being the same as possible and just tweak the shutter between the two so that they end up looking the same. I'm not like doing slow shutter or anything, so that's not really important. We're gonna step back here just a little more. I'm gonna get all three of these buildings on the M6. All right, let's see what we can do here. Damn, not there yet. One of the downsides of shooting 50 is it's pretty freaking punchy. Oh yeah, got it this time. If you've got a project and you're shooting film and digital, or you're trying to like combine the two and you want to create a cohesive experience, and that really is what it comes down to. Like, not everything needs to be cohesive if you don't want it to be. Sometimes film just should look like film if that's what you're going for, and your digital photos can be whatever you want them to be. But if you desire to have cohesion in a gallery, then shooting a little wider on digital gives you room to punch in just a little bit as you need to match the same focal length as your film camera. This works really well for me because I'm shooting an M6 and an M11 and I have two Summilux lenses which have very similar character. If I was walking around with a totally different film camera than my M11, it would be a different story here. But I would still stand by, like shooting a little wider on digital is wise when you're trying to build a cohesive gallery. And if color grading is important for you for that cohesion and you want to check out some film looks, take a look at verygoodpresets.com. It is linked right below. So now I'm going to show you a selection of photos from this project, but from a prior trip, not this one because I obviously haven't gotten the film developed. It's going to be a mix of film and digital shots. So you can see what you think if you can tell which one is which and if you feel like the gallery is in fact cohesive. All of my film scans are done by Negative Lab. There's a link below. You can check out Negative Lab, and if you use the code DAVE, you save a little on your first order. So if you are looking for anyone to develop your film, maybe you develop it at home or maybe you use another lab and you want to try a different lab, give Negative Lab a try. That link is right below. Now let's take a look at some film and digital photos side by side. That's the end of that roll. I always overwind it. I don't know why I do that. All right, I hope you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you did, be sure to give it a like. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I'm gonna continue on my shoot today. I'm gonna explore this town a little more and then head to the next town and then the next town and then the next town and so on for a couple more days. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you next time.